Welcome to the community of Maidstone, which is one of the first free villages in Jamaica. Now, Maidstone was once a slave plantation. Over 300 slaves were on this plantation. Maidstone is a community that is made up of 8 districts. The Moravian Church is an integral part of this community because that church was built. There was a church before that one, of course, over a place called Adams Valley, which is a few miles in the bushes. Now that church was built, I think, 1834, and when the population outgrew it, they pulled the building apart, stone by stone, and they came through the hills and they built the church on top of the hill there. Now that church was started in 1838, and it took a record 2 years to finish. 1888, not 1838. So by 1890, the church was completed. And you have gone up there and you have seen the cornerstone, all the different stones used. And can you imagine? There were no power tools. And these people were able to use chisel, hand tools, to carve out a building like that. Over the hills behind that school, that hill is known as the Nazareth Hill. And there's another name for it. It is called the Trial Hill. Now, why is it called the Trial Hill? Because the slaves were taken there and not given a trial, because first time slaves didn't have rights. So they were murdered there. Other slaves were asked to gather there to witness as a deterrent. So if anybody want to rebel, seeing what happened to their counterparts, they would just forget about it.
The community has a rich history. So how do you keep that legacy alive?
All right. We have what is called a 1st of August celebration, which will happen at the end of this week, or the first day of next week, second day, 1st of August, Monday. What we do is showcase things from the past. We have music, we have dance, we have food. JCDC is a part of it, and you know they're big on culture. Also the SDC, the community development, they're big on that, so they assist in helping us to showcase. Our member of parliament, Mikael Phillips, is the patron. He is a historian at heart, so he loves to, post things like this. So he helps us to really showcase this every year. So every year, 1st of August, this common comes alive, rich with food, dance, and culture. This museum that we're here on the school compound, it houses artifacts from, what the ex-slaves used to use, slaves and ex-slaves, also the slave master. So when we go inside, we will see. On the wall here, we have some whipsaw, and these were used back then to cut wood. Now they would put the wood in a pit, and one man would be at the bottom and one at the top, and they would cut until they get the desired cut from the wood. In our showcase here, we have iron tongue, we have parts of mill and parts of a wheel. Now this one over here, we have iron. Now we know about electric iron, but back then we have coal iron, and whenever they would heat it on the coal and they would rub it off on banana trash, and you get a smooth surface. and then they would iron the clothes with that. Also, we have locks, and they say that these were found at an area where they had probably a jail cell. So the slaves who would so-called misbehave would be placed in a jail cell, and these are remnants from the jail cell. If you come this way with me, on the wall here we have a wooden bowl, and believe it or not, persons used to bathe in that. So these are parts of a mill. Also the one on the ground there, so parts of a mill. In these, in the middle here, we have different types of pots. So these three cases have different types of pots, and they're in different sizes. These small pots, you have breakfast pots, and you have big dinner pots. And persons used to also, even though this area is not known really for sugarcane was planted not for commercial use. So persons used to boil sugar, boil the juice, and they would make what is called wet sugar. So when they would boil it, and when it comes down to thickness, they would put it in a container and leave it overnight for it to set. And they would normally put a little ginger in there, and it would be delicious. Because children usually, they would cut pieces and they would give children to eat as candy. It was very delicious. So that's the three different types of pots we have here. Now moving over this side now, these are called branding iron. And this is the not so nice part of the slave history. These were used to brand the slaves. And they usually brand them on this part of the shoulder here, and on the tip of the branding iron you'd see initial. So if your initial is A and F and you own a number of slaves, they would brand the slave. So if they run away and they check them, they would know which plantation the slave is from. And if they ever sell a slave, they just use something flat and burn out the initial and rebrand the slave with a different one on the other shoulder. So it was terrible. So that's what the branding irons are used for. This is a part of a restraint. It was used to restrain the slave. They would put their hand behind them or in front to prevent them from moving. It's just a part, the other part is missing, but this is just a part of it. A part of a horse buggy, a horse-drawn carriage, because the slave master used to own horses, and when he lived on the hilltop there, he would come down into the district on his horse, or his family, they would be in the buggy. So these are remnants of the buggy. You have the cog, the wooden cog, and you have parts of the wheel. And the stirrup, sorry. Over here now, here we have the tongue of a bell, and of course this is a trophy. So this is also part of our heritage. So this is a listing of the names of our ex-slaves. And it was from 1840 when there was a listing done. These persons bought pieces of land. So right after emancipation, the then slave owner sold lands to the then missionaries, because we had missionaries from Germany who came to Jamaica to work during slavery. They had a hard time because they brought with them religion and education. And they were faced opposition because the slave masters did not want the slaves to be educated. But they did that secretly. And also, when emancipation came about, they bought plots of land between 15 acres to an acre, and they sold it to persons like these. Now, I told you earlier that these people, their direct descendants, still live in the community here. And my name is my surname is on this board, which I'm very proud of. Now, this board tells you about the history of Maidstone. So it gives you a synopsis of what Maidstone is all about. Alright, so this is a photograph of the old plantation house. So it was the house of the plantation owner before it became the minister's dwelling years ago. And here we have the old slave hospital here. And of course we have literature on the area. This shows you the history of Maidstone, the library, the Maidstone Branch Library, and the Nazareth Basic School. Now the Nazareth Basic School did not start here. It started on the hill behind the church up there. And it was known as the mother's room. That mothers used to leave out of the building during service, and they would go to that little room at the back, and they would breastfeed and change their babies. Now, they saw the need where the children would need to be, kept and later on educated. So that's where the first basic school started, in that little mother's room behind the church. So this school did not start down there. It started not as the church cemetery, but as the private cemetery for the slave master.